Okay, the recording has started. We're good. The last time we left off at the discussion on the three guys, why I think certain things, why I think Mihailovic was the main problem for the Germans, why I think actually Tito did a lot of good stuff for the Germans, and why that Pavelic guy was so.
Right.
Yeah, because he ultimately lit up the powder keg.
Actually, he started that, man. I still get a chuckle out when I was actually starting to accumulate books to read on this topic. The first book I got was a book called 1941. I didn't even know it was about Yugoslavia to begin with. And I started reading it. It's like, oh, they're actually talking about Pavlovic's, the first things that he did here. It's like, oh, well, this is really important to understand this, because this is where everything's kind of go right off the rails. Because, I mean, it's probably tense in Yugoslavia on the best of days, right? I mean, you guys probably always have some sort of tension going on, right?
Yes,
I would
yeah,
guess.
that would be an accurate assessment. I mean, it's not politically correct assessment, but it's mostly accurate. So there are always tensions going on.
I shouldn't ask. It's not really a question, because the one thing I'm going to be curious about at some point, you'll have to kind of tell me about what life in Yugoslavia is like during the time of Tito, but we're not anywhere near that conversation right now, because in the United States, we don't necessarily know all the stuff that's going on in Yugoslavia, but we have this image that, okay, when Tito was there, everything was all kind of nice and fine and everybody got along. It's not really, that would be something we talk about like many episodes from now, once we talk about, the last moves in the area, because life under Tito is a whole different topic, I'm sure. And I expect you guys have a ton of writers that have written stuff about that topic.
If you want me to give you the long and short of it, there are some people that still miss Tito.
Yeah, of course.
Here in Serbia, there's some people that wanna right now move out his tomb from the center of Belgrade to somewhere else.
Really?
And yes,
Okay.
This is a pre-election statement. So as you can imagine, they intend to get voter points on this. So obviously they think they found something popular. The hard fact is that Yugoslavia had I guess that would be a soft bankruptcy a couple of years after Tito died. And so you would have a very wide range of people, telling you things about Tito, from people that adore him, to people that would basically say that he was, well, not Hitler, but Pavelic. Okay, so
yeah. My own perspective, I would guess that those people are probably closer to, I would suspect he was a bit of a tyrant, but I don't actually know, and I can't comment too far. I just know that most of the communist regimes at the time were fairly tyrannical. I don't think the Yugoslavians were too far behind them. It seems like they were way more market-oriented, though. So like it had like a real mostly functioning economy, and you guys could, the people could kind of live their lives and be professional and stuff like that. They probably had to be communist, I'm sure, but I don't think it was like the fervent communism that, say, like Nazis were in Germany, because, in Germany you were doing nothing if you weren't a Nazi. But I think in Yugoslavia you could probably get by without being a really fervent communist party member. Just guessing, I don't actually know, of course.
Well, honestly, in all totalitarian systems, you can get by up to a point without being actually in the party. Right. It's just a question of, also being in the party can be dangerous. That's all, there's this line of reasoning related to this. In terms of Yugoslavia, because the communism in Yugoslavia lasted for like 45 years or so.
Yeah.
Obviously the system changed.
Sure.
Okay, so Tito at the start and the system at close to the end are not the same.
Right.
But I think that we'll be going on a tangent.
We don't. This is like episodes way far from now. You know, we don't need to talk about that right now, but at some point I would like to dig in that. But right now, let's go back to what we need to be talking about, the World War II experience. So,
well, as you said, let's get back to World War II. So what we have here is I guess that we can quote this and say that what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Okay. That's a. So what is your specific example here? What's a Yugoslavian version of this?
It's gonna end badly. Okay.
Okay.
Anyways, just in 2 words, it's very interesting to read about and hear about people that speak about different cultures.
Yep.
In terms of something that surpasses national divides and talks about a bit more like a cultural sphere. The common cultural sphere. I don't know if you have played Paradox games, particularly Europa Universalis.
I have played that a long time ago, not any time recently. It's a great. Well, they make great games, so
yeah. Okay, hats off.
I'd say they're the best, but okay. Anyway.
Anyways, they have this concept of a tech group, and this tech group, ironically, is connected to your religion. But hear me out. It's I think that they're onto something there. So, for instance, they have the Latin tech group, the Orthodox tech group, and the Muslim tech group, and some others.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so these are like overreaching. If you're France, if you're England, if you're the United States, if you're Sweden, you still belong to the Latin tech group.
Okay.
Because this is something that those cultures have in common. Now, the problem with Yugoslavia is that is right on the dividing ground between the Latins and the Orthodox.
Yeah,
the Latins meaning the Catholics.
They also have a slight hint of Muslim, although for Europa Universalis, this would predate Islam or the Turkish invasion. But yeah, okay.
You have also the Turkish invasion and the corresponding conversion of a part of the people to the Muslim religion. So you also have a Muslim culture here. In terms of culturally, in terms of importance for Yugoslavia, I'm just referring to the thing that they managed to somehow grasp, the fact that simply countries within a certain bigger culture have something in common, and they have an understanding between each other. So, as a Serb, what I usually notice is that Serbs are viewed as others. They don't simply belong in the club if we're talking about the Western nations. So
yeah, that's true. They kind of don't. They kind of have this weird sort of fringe status, almost like Slavic Western sort of thing, something like Orthodox. Yeah, you're right. They generally tend to think of it more as like a Orthodox country than a Western country. That's
exactly
true.
The Greeks get the free pass because of the ancient Greece and the culture.
Yeah.
But Serbs, Russians, and so on and so forth, I don't think that anybody particularly cares about Bulgarians either. Speaking on the West.
Not that I've noticed. In fact, many times I have to explain to people what Bulgaria actually is, which is kind of sad that you have to explain to them what Bulgaria even is.
So aside from Gladstone, like 150 years ago, I don't think not anybody cares about them either. So this is just a short intro to explain that simply, you belong to a certain higher culture group, and you do view people that belong to the other group as others.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So yeah, when you have Yugoslavia, you have people that are from three different culture groups that simply does not help when you're trying to make something that is unified, functional, and operational.
Actually, generally it won't work. I
Exactly.
can't think of an example where it did work, really.
So, but there's another thing, and this is going to be even more controversial. The strange thing about Yugoslavia is that Serbs, Croats, Bosniaks, Montenegrins, and so are basically one people.
Really?
Because we have we speak the same language.
Yeah. What do you call that language, by the way?
It was called,
because here in the West we call it Serbo-Croatian, but it's like,
exactly.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, it was Serbo-Croatian. It's now Serbian, Croatian, Bosniak, or whatever. But it's the same. It's the same language. But it's like everybody can understand each other. So
really?
So there is this completely weird situation whereby there are religious differences, there are cultural differences, yet people can speak to each other completely, without problem. They look the same. They act very similar, so.
Because in my ignorance, I'd assumed that, like, when you were in Serbia, you speak differently than they do in Croatia, so that, not that they would be unintelligible, but like it might be a completely different dialect. But really all that happens is you just have a couple different words that you swap out for different things. Since I don't know the languages, I can't give you an example of a word, but like bread might be different in Croatia than it is in Serbia, for example.
Exactly.
That's it. That's the only difference.
So,
oh, wow.
So, okay. So this is a short intro to the weirdness that is our situation, because contrary to the all unifying things, for instance, which would be the relatively common language, the common language, we have the situation that because people belong to different cultures, they think of it as more important, and ultimately, when things boil down to problems, it is, and it's simply that the religious factor, which is probably more cultural, is dominant. So the fact that
really? So you would lean in more. You'd lean in politically. You'd lean in more into the religious differences to kind of get your competition going on.
Well, I guess. I have to be clear on this. I don't understand. I don't know how to explain the things that happened.
Right.
These things are not normal. These things are completely, they're completely insane. I guess, I understand people.
Human, man.
Well, I understand that people like to fight each other over things. That's relatively normal. But ultimately, what Pavelic did, that's really not that normal. If I could try to explain it, my idea is that this would be linked to the fact that he belongs to the Latin world.
Pavelic,
yes.
Pavelic belongs to the Latin crew by your definition. Okay.
Yes, and there is a very strong influence of the Catholic Church in relation to his organization, and that he sees himself as a crusader. Now, when I mentioned the formula, you kill a third, you expel a third, and you convert a third.
Jeez.
So actually, the last ones would become Croats. They would stop being Serbs, and they would become Croats.
So his idea was to either, kill a third of them, convert a third of them, and expel a third of them. The Serbs. Well, pretty much anybody that wasn't Croat, right? I guess.
And get rid of the others. So the point being is, the big other, the big threat coming from Serbs or of the people belonging to the other culture. in this, Muslims, the Bosniak Muslims, the Bosniaks, whatever, were with Pavelic. What would happen to them in the next step, it's anybody's guess.
Well, presumably, if he ever got to the point where he felt comfortable, he'd probably start exiling them. But at the point that World War II is kind of breaking down, he needs all the allies he can get, and he needs an opposition. So he picks the Serbians because, you know, you can probably rally the Bosniaks and the Muslims to your side, but you need to push out the Serbians in exchange for this allegiance, I guess. Or you rally your two other factions against the third faction. Well, it's more than three factions, but for simplicity's sake, we'll say Croat, Serbian, and other. Is that a good compromise there? Because there's hundreds of factions in Yugoslavia.
Exactly. It's very complicated, and I guess that when we can stay without three kings, we have the Serb leading the Serbs, we have the Croat leading the Croats and the Bosniaks, and we have Tito leading mostly Serbs, but others also.
Yeah.
So this is the complicated situation, and I'm giving this intro because you know, obviously it's very difficult to explain, but there are hard differences. Obviously, they're obviously based on religion, but because people here, I don't see them as too religious. Actually, I think that it has gone away from religion itself and moved into something, you know, subconscious, you know, group, you know, how you see your group or whatever.
I got to say, your idea of like this, there might be a better term, but this Europa Universalis thing you presented, actually a pretty good explanation for that, because it's not tied to religion. It's like, if you're in this group, your focus generally tends to be this way. Man, I wish you could think of a perfect example of this. I guess a good one you need a better example of this, but let's say in the Latin or the Latin tech world, they would have a lot of emphasis on naval tech because, you know, there's a lot of naval trade that goes on and stuff like that. So you're going to spend a lot of time working on ship-oriented things. Whereas in Yugoslavia, for the most part, you probably don't really even care about ships that much. So if you're part of the Latin,
presuming that Yugoslavia is even one entity that can be talked about.
Right.
Okay. So
that's true. I made a bad assumption there.
So the point being is that Yugoslavia always had the problem of Croats. In terms of Croats wanting, probably preferring to have their own state rather than be in Yugoslavia. This is something that was in the kingdom. That is something that also Tito, you know, when he was at the height of his power, also had the same problem. So because
Tito a Croat by birth, even though he kind of converted to being something else?
I think that he was always a Croat. I think that his nationality was always Croat. This never changed.
He played the game really well then, because he sure came off as like this unifying figure, even though he was a Croat at his base.
Well, we will talk about the things that Tito did, but anyways, you know, to get the focus back, simply what happened is that on account of these cultural differences, things never really managed to work properly in terms of that you want everybody to be involved and to have the same general idea. There was always a problem of Croats who never really accepted Yugoslavia as was, and they never did really like the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Ultimately, they didn't like Tito's Yugoslavia, and that might be connected with the Catholic Church background and the Catholic Church vision. Now, ultimately, Yugoslavia tried to make nice with the Catholic Church, and however, it seems that they gave privileges to the Catholic Church a little bit more than it did to the Orthodox. So the Orthodox Church rebelled, and the thing fell out. And so for instance, the Catholic Archbishop of Zagreb said, you know, these Serbs are Byzantines. You know, they're treacherous, shifty, and so on and so forth. However,
No.
for instance, if Serbs would be telling you that somebody is a shifty, treacherous person and so on and so forth, they would be telling you, oh, he's a Latin.
Really?
So, I mean, so you get the idea, okay?
Yeah, interesting.
You know, so this is how I see it. I mean, obviously, was there a compromise possible? Potentially, yes. I have no idea what it should have looked like.
We don't know
anyways,
now. I mean, it's sort of compromised pre-World War II and a bit more of a compromise post-World War II, but not really a true compromise. The two cultures didn't blend or amalgamate at all. They just agreed they weren't going to beat the crap out of each other for the most part until an opportune time came back to resume the fighting.
That's the problem. There was a compromise attempted by the Yugoslav government, which is seen as pro-Serbian, but should not really be seen in that way. Anyways, the Yugoslav government gave the Croats a huge autonomous territory, and basically created the ethnically clean, or the ethnically, you know, connected all the Croatian territories into one, called the Banovina of Croatia. So this was a idea of a compromise in favor of the Croats. However, it was too little, too late, or I guess they never were bought on this or whatever. But it all completely fell apart when Yugoslavia was invaded by Germans, and so we get to a little bit earlier situation.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the question of Yugoslavia was at that point neutral. So France fell, Greece was under attack, and Germany was still not engaged in Barbarossa. So Hungary went, Slovakia went over to Germany, Hungary went over to Germany, Romania went over to Germany, Bulgaria went over to Germany, and it was the question what Yugoslavia will do. Now the Yugoslav government basically accepted to join the Axis Pact.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow.
Formally it was just to join the pact and really don't do anything. But informally, it might have. I think that it accepted some secret clauses which were basically going to involve Yugoslavia in, you know, partitioning Greece.
Oh, really?
Yes. At that point, both the Serbian officers and the Serbian populace revolted.
Oh, they did. So this would have been early 41 or late 40? Probably late 40, huh?
Early 41, March 41.
March 41. Oh, so all that thing just kind of fell apart real quick, like. Because in March they were like members of the Allied camp, and by April you got your ass invaded, or you got invaded, tore up.
Well, Yugoslavia was not formally the member of the Allied camp. Oh, I mean, it was formally a member of the Axis camp for 2 days, actually.
2 days. Okay.
But what happened was that Serbs revolted. There was everybody thinks there was English involvement in the coup, but actually American and Soviet involvement was probably more important. But
Americans were involved in that? Yeah. Wow.
Yes, you know, America was not neutral.
You know. Oh no.
To the surprise of no one, America was not really neutral.
And I'm not making the claim that they were involved to a degree. I mean, they were not particularly overt about it, but they sure had some covert stuff going on.
Yes. So I think it was Walter Donovan, the the head of the OSS. I think was he the founder of the CIA? I'm not sure, but anyways, he.
So I'm not quite sure what the overlap is there, but they definitely turned into the CIA at some point. But
yeah, so he went to Belgrade, and also a Soviet NKVD hotshot also came to Belgrade. Everybody, both of them tried to influence the head of the putsch, of the coup. So the coup was successful. It was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because the coup was in Belgrade. All the officers were for the coup, so it was bloodless, successful, and it was done in one evening. And what happened was that there was a huge popular demonstration in Belgrade, and some other cities also, and against the pact, because Brittany, France, Russia, the United States, Greece, those were all allies of the Kingdom of Serbia from World War I.
Oh, right, yeah.
Germany, Austria, Hungary were the enemies. Now, Italy was a friend in World War I, but we talked about it. They have gone more negative in the meantime.
Yeah, so what happened was on Yugoslavian territory, so that's another problem.
Yeah, so what happened was basically Germany invaded. It crushed the Yugoslav army in 2 weeks. The resistance was weak. I think actually probably I think there's information on Wikipedia that like 200 Germans died. I think that the number is a bit heftier than that, because some other people compared some other reports. But anyways, ultimately Yugoslavia was crushed. What happened was the king and the government, they fled to Greece and then to Britain, while the Yugoslav army basically collapsed.
Okay.
There is a big story on Yugoslav army actually capitulating, but that was not the case. But anyways, it's
Did they actually? So the Germans actually fought engagements with the Yugoslav army, or they just really didn't put up much of a fight at all? Well, I guess for 2 weeks you're fighting. Uh-oh, chaos is erupting here. Let's see how far this goes. All right.
Well, in any ways, the Yugoslav army was crushed because it was not ready. It was its deployment was bad. It was not mobilized. The Germans deserted and joined the Germans. The German minority, the Croats deserted and joined the Ustaše. Yeah. So there you go.
Oh yeah, they all just splintered apart, and that was that.
Yes, and what happened was Germans come in, and the Italians come in, and they occupy the country. And at this point, I want to give you the map of the game.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because it might be very useful to as an illustration of what happened.
Oh, absolutely! This is going to be really good. That's a very clean map.
Okay. So
I should just use that map for my game, because it would be really work for the game I'm working on as well. So, all right, let me puff that up so I can see it.
No problem whatsoever.
See it. All right, there we go. Go ahead.
So, you can see from the left-hand corner, you have the Reich in Italy. They're there. Hungary, Romania is not shown because Romania was not a enemy country. You got Bulgaria.
Really involved, right?
No. Romania was not involved in the invasion of Yugoslavia. Romanians did not occupy Yugoslavia, and so huge respect for them. Yugoslavia was occupied and divided into occupation zones. The color mapping is supposed to reflect the occupation zones, and ultimately because they meant almost everything afterwards in the guerrilla fight. So the dark green parts are the parts which were initially or eventually occupied by Italy.
Right.
The light green parts and the blue parts are the parts occupied by Germans.
Okay. So the Germans occupied Sarajevo originally?
Yes, yes, but
okay.
they came up with their local friends there.
Right.
The local friends are in white. Okay, so obviously the Germans are black, the Italians are green, and the Bulgarians are brown, and they actually occupied a huge part of the country of Serbia, because yes, and what you have
more
is
did the Bulgarians have Salonika? I guess the Bulgarians held Salonika.
Yes, I think they did, or either the Bulgarians or the Germans. The memory escapes me.
Yeah,
anyways, the point is that what you have here is also the local helpers or the local collaborators. So in the gray code are the Croats and the Muslims, and the white code is the Serb and Slovene collaborators.
Right.
So obviously you see from just the numbers is that the Serb collaborators and Slovene collaborators are relatively few, while the other collaborators are relatively numerous.
Right.
Also, what you can see is that when we talk about the German forces, they're mostly located in parts what they need to suppress the Serbs. So Serbia,
yeah, you're right.
Yes, Serbia or Slovenia, because so when you look at the German behavior, they were welcome with flowers in Zagreb, in the Croatian capital.
Wow,
and they burned down Belgrade. So the Germans know who the Germans know who their main enemy is, which would be the Serbs. So the main occupying forces would go to the regions where Serbs are most numerous. Also, they treated Slovenes terribly, and actually ethnically cleansed a lot of them, because they wanted to annex a part of Slovenia.
Well, that's a really good point you made right there, because one of the things that kind of surprised me when I was doing my research was how popular Tito's message was in Slovenia, and I couldn't figure out why people were paying attention to that. But now you mentioned the fact that Germans were actually trying to slice off part of Slovenia. Well, that would make sense. You would pretty much create opposition to your move, and you would line up with your Tito. Because is there a lot of Serbs in Slovenia?
No, sorry. These are the Slovenian. Okay, the game is not 100% accurate because I can't go into so much detail, but these would be Slovenian.
Yeah. That's
these
fine.
Would be
you're
the
trying to
Slovenian
capture the
collaborators.
flavor. You're trying to capture the general feel. Anyways, you're never going to get specifically 100% accurate, but just get the idea.
So what we have here is a situation whereby a lot of the country is controlled by the collaborators, the puppet state of Croatia.
Oh yeah.
With the idea is, we can remove the Germans. We'll leave the Germans in the territory that we think is the most likely to rebel, and that would be Serbia. So this would be this Belgrade, Šumadija, Pomoravlje territory.
Yep. In Slovenia too, in this case, but yeah.
Well, this would be the occupying forces in Slovenia. I'm not sure that there were so many Germans at that point there, but nevertheless, there was they were occupied by Germany, so they obviously had garrisons there.
Right.
So this would be the German plan: is okay, we occupy Serbia, we take care of Serbia, we move some troops, so we have 4 occupying divisions. We'll leave 3 in Serbia, and we'll just move 1 into the Serb territories, or in what is today Bosnia. And this is
Okay.
today's Republika Srpska. So this is also where Serbs are predominant.
Yep.
What happens is that what Pavelic did ultimately completely messed up the plan. Initially speaking, Germans had their local collaborators, which were gray, white, and red. So the partisan units were not collaborators as such, but the Communist Party members were made available to the Germans as translators, help, and people that would report on their nationalist opponents. While your initial problem would be coming from the units of the Yugoslav army that have escaped to forests and started reorganizing themselves as Chetniks.
Right.
So you have from here in Šumadija, you would have Mihailović. And here in southern Serbia, you would have another Chetnik commander, which was more famous, but he ultimately deserted and collaborated with the Germans. So he was relatively, he was gone relatively quick as an important.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So in the state of Croatia, you have Pavelic as the Croat leader, while in Serbia, which is German occupied, you try to find a Petain-like figure, like Marshal Petain from France, and give him the power.
Okay.
So there was a pro-German general called Nedić, who was widely respected, but ultimately, because he collaborated, he basically destroyed his reputation.
Okay.
So this is your So this is your initial situation in April and May.
So question for you then. So whatever German troops that were headed to Barbarossa aren't on this map. They're already gone and getting refitted and getting ready to go into Russia. These are just the garrisons? Okay.
Exactly.
And the Greek garrisons you don't really care about, but there were some Germans down in Greece as well, right?
Yes.
At this point, okay.
They were definitely in Crete and in some other parts of Greece, probably Athens and so. So this is just a skeleton crew. But what happens is, because there are massacres in Croatia and the Italians want to proclaim an independent Montenegro, suddenly what happens is you get a lot of Serb revolters all around.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly you got a lot of Serbs that start revolting. You expected a revolt in Serbia, but you actually got revolts in Croatia and Montenegro.
Yeah. So these guys are all revolting because of what Pavlović is doing, not because of what the Germans are doing.
Exactly.
That is the key point. Okay.
Yeah. And this will be a later progress, but some of these revolters, the officers will be killed, and these revolting units would be taken over by communists.
Oh, because they don't have any leaders at that point.
Yeah. This is the case for Krajina. For Sandžak, for Montenegro, you would be having organic communists there, because they're a little bit more support to the Communist Party.
Interesting.
But, yes. So what happens is, also in Slovenia, at some point you would be having communists, and also in Dalmatia. But good here. So there would be more revolters here in Serbia that would be also Chetnik. So this would be the situation you have. Suddenly, you don't really, your situation is completely changed from what you expected.
Yeah.
You have a lot of.
More importantly, you're out of position.
Well,
you're not able to send your troops where they need to be immediately. I mean, obviously you can fix that, but when it starts, you don't have boots on the ground where the revolt is.
And this is the situation in the summer.
Oh, and this is just
point,
pre-Barbarossa, like just pre-Barbarossa, right? Like basically May, oh, actually June of 41, right?
Yeah, but to be honest, at this point, the revolters are Serbs. You don't have the division between Serb or Chetnik and communist revolters. The revolters are all Serbs.
That's a good
what
point.
happens is when Tito comes in and the Communist Party takes over, the Communist Party starts to make its own partisans and takes over the control of some of the revolters. And you don't have unified control. You will never have unified control over the revolters. The revolters, the guerrillas, all revolt because of their specific local circumstances.
Yep.
Ultimately, the Serbs are mostly successful in their causes of revolt and their aims of revolt. Aside from Serbia, well, the communists want something else. They want to take over power. So the Serbs want to remove the oppression against them, while the communists want to make a communist country. And this is where there's going to be a division between the two sides.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you think Pavelic hadn't done anything, I don't know why he wouldn't, but let's say for sake of argument, he decided he didn't want to do all this. Would you still end up with this partisan revolt at some point? Probably not, huh? I wouldn't think so.
If he didn't do what he did, you would never know about Tito.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because when you do that, you don't even give Tito space to breathe. He's got nothing to work with. He can't do his things because Tito is at first a politician. So he has to work the political angle to acquire power to where he can kind of turn that power base into a real army to go fight the existing Yugoslavian forces that would be opposed to him, that initially they don't know they need to be opposed to him because they don't realize what his big vision is initially. Wow, this is getting more interesting. Okay.
So you don't have any communists on the map right now.
No.
You're sending your 300, 400, 500 Spanish volunteers. Spanish war
where are
veterans.
they going? Where are they going?
Where are you going to send them?
Well, you're going to send them someplace where they don't get freaking killed. So I guess you send them to probably Slovenia, or you send them into maybe where the Italians are hanging out, because the Italians aren't so good at killing people off like the Germans are. Although I don't know if the Germans have their counterinsurgency hat on just yet, but they will shortly. Where would you send them?
I'm going to tell you where they sent them.
Okay, where'd they go?
Over here.
What? Why would you go there?
Because they think the same thing that the Germans think, that the Serbs are going to revolt, and they want to take over that revolt and control it.
Oh, so they make a power play right off the bat then, really?
Exactly, but when they come into Serbia, finally come into the woods in June, late June 1941,
right.
The Chetniks are already there.
Oh.
And the people like the Chetniks.
Yeah.
They don't like these commie people, commie guys very, very much.
That's an interesting twist. So basically, Tito got his butt handed to him originally.
Exactly.
Because he went someplace. He went to some place where he wasn't very welcome.
And then he went here.
Yep.
From Užice, and he went to Montenegro and Eastern Bosnia. But ultimately, he got his butt kicked here also. So in 1942, he had to go for a long march with just a few surviving, few thousand surviving soldiers and how do you call them? Followers.
Veterans, I guess, or yeah, survivors.
Yeah, exactly. And he ended up here in Krajina, in the town called Bihać. So
and then
he was kicked out of Serbia.
This is in the Italian zone, though, right?
Well, of course, because in the German zone, they kill you. So you have to realize.
Italians might let you live, huh?
Yeah, so you have to realize that for the whole of the war, basically until late 1942, Mihailovic was in the German zone, and Chetniks were in the German zone, and there they made their sabotages. So they did it somewhere where it was not, Serbia was not a pleasant place to be.
No. Wow, this is interesting. All right, real quick, what's our time check on this? I'm not sure how long we've been at it. This is really stinking good, though. I'm liking this one. How long have we been doing this for? Like 30 minutes now?
No, an hour.
What? We've been talking for an hour?
Yes, time flies when you're having fun.
Well, we're gonna have to stop there, Andrea, because I think we're gonna blow people's brains with an hour-long video. But
yeah,
this is really good. All right, so we could stop at the point where Tito is basically trying to find a place to hang his hat. And you're saying he winds up in the Italian zone. Yes, but he winds up in the Italian zone because he's likely to live longer there. He won't live very long in Serbia because the Serbians are getting smoked all the time at this point.
So we're going to talk about the revolt that happens here in the part of Šumadija and Užice, the city.
Yes, because this is a point where the things kind of really start attracting the attention of the Western allies, where they realize, oh, there's actually really something going on here. But they can't really do anything about it because the Western allies are getting their butts handed to them by the Germans. But at this point, Yugoslavia has popped up on the Western Allied radar screen, and the whole thing kind of changes perspective at this point, because now the Allies are thinking, wow, we might want to do something there. There's like a mess. Maybe we could drop some supplies or something there and kind of stir the pot a little more, give the Germans something to worry about. And, okay, this is a great spot. We should probably stop here then, I think.
Yes, because honestly, we need to talk about why the three zones, the three revolts are completely different.
Yes, and that should be our next conversation, I think, is the difference between the zones.
Yes.
Okay.